Okay, picture this. You're high in the Himalayas, there's this remote lake, maybe only, 40 meters across?
Tiny, really, in the grand scheme of things.
Right, beautiful, serene. But then you see it's surrounded by skeletons. Hundreds of them.
Yeah. It's an incredibly eerie image. That's why they call it Skeleton Lake.
And immediately you're just thinking, how? How did so many people die way out here in such an isolated place?
It's the central question, isn't it? A mystery that really kicked off back in 1942. A forest officer in the Indian Himalayas just stumbled upon it. Rupkund Lake.
Wow. And the sheer number of bones.
Yeah.
That's what grabs you.
Absolutely. It's captivated people, researchers, and the public, for decades now.
And we should probably say up front, this hasn't been like a pristine archaeological site from the get-go.
No, definitely not. That's a really important point. The site's been disturbed quite a bit.
How so?
Well, you've got natural things like rock slides common in that kind of terrain, but also human activity. Yeah, tourists moving bones around, sometimes even taking artifacts, unfortunately, which obviously makes the job of figuring out what happened much harder.
Yeah, complicates the research.
Hugely. But despite all those challenges, modern science has actually given us some pretty astonishing insights, really unexpected stuff.
So that's our mission for this deep dive then, to explore the theories, the science.
Exactly. We want to look at the different ideas about what happened and unpack the surprising discoveries that are starting to peel back the layers of this grim puzzle.
Expect twists then. Folklore meets science.
Yeah. You got it. It's a fascinating mix.
Okay, so let's start back near the beginning. After that initial discovery in 42, what were people thinking? What were the first theories?
Well, you have to remember the context. World War II was raging.
Right.
So one of the very first thoughts, quite logically, was, are these wartime casualties? The British authorities even wondered if they could be Japanese soldiers who'd somehow gotten lost up there.
Makes sense for the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that theory didn't last.
No, not for long. As people looked closer, other ideas started bubbling up. One was maybe traders.
Traders, like using high mountain passes.
Possibly. And maybe they got caught by, I don't know, a sudden disease outbreak, an epidemic, or just some extreme weather event, environmental hardship.
And what about local stories? There must have been legends about a place like that.
Oh, absolutely. There's a very strong local Hindu lore connected to the lake. It involves a pilgrimage.
Tell me about that.
The story goes that a king, his queen, and their whole entourage were on a pilgrimage, the Nanda Devi Raj Yatra,
Okay.
which honors the goddess Nanda Devi. It's still held every 12 years, actually. But in the legend, the royal party supposedly acted disrespectfully.
Oh.
Yeah. And the goddess Nanda Devi, in her anger, unleashed a furious hailstorm that killed them all.
A killer hailstorm sent by a goddess.
Yeah.
It's quite a story.
It is a powerful image and deeply embedded in the local culture.
So you have these initial guesses. The war theory, traders, and this striking local legend. How did science start to weigh in? Where did the actual investigation begin?
It really started with looking closely at the physical evidence, the bones themselves, trying to get clues about who these people were, how they died.
But you said the site was disturbed. Were the skeletons intact?
No, that was a major challenge right away. No complete articulated skeletons, just piles of bones scattered around. It made it really hard to even figure out if people died at the same time or were part of the same group.
Like a huge morbid jigsaw puzzle with missing pieces and no picture on the box.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
But even with scattered bones, what could they tell?
A surprising amount, actually. Skull analysis, for instance. It showed a really wide age range. Teenagers, older adults, everyone in between.
Okay, so not just soldiers of fighting age, for example.
Exactly. And they also found signs of nutritional stress. Things like anemia. Suggests life wasn't easy, but anemia alone wouldn't cause a mass death like this.
Right, not the main cause.
But here's where it gets really interesting. A lot of the skulls showed specific kinds of fractures. Compression fracture.
Compression fractures, what does that mean? What causes that?
It points strongly towards blunt force trauma from above. And the pattern led researchers to a pretty startling theory. Hailstones. Massive hailstones. Maybe the size of cricket balls?
Wow. Cricket ball-sized hail. That would definitely do it.
It would, and suddenly you have this incredible link back to that local legend, right? The deadly hailstorm.
Science actually backing up the folklore. That's amazing.
It was a remarkable moment. It seemed like maybe the legend held a core truth.
But that still leaves the question of when. When did this hailstorm or whatever it was happen? That's where dating techniques come in.
Precisely. Radiocarbon dating. It lets us estimate the age of organic stuff, like bone, by looking at carbon isotope decay.
And what did the dating show? Did it confirm the legend's timing?
Well, it delivered another huge surprise, a real curveball. The results showed the deaths didn't all happen at once.
Not a single event.
Nope. The skeletons came from multiple different time periods, centuries apart. So that idea of one big tragedy, one group, one hailstorm, it just fell apart.
Multiple time periods. Okay, that changes everything. So when did they die?
The analysis identified at least two major clusters. The first group dated to around 800 CE. So yeah, quite a long time ago.
800 CE. And who are they likely to be?
Based on other evidence, likely South Asian individuals. Probably pilgrims, fitting with the general idea of the Nanda Devi pilgrimage route.
Okay, that makes sense. Pilgrims caught in a storm around 800 CE. But you said two clusters?
Yes. And this is the truly mind-blowing part. The second distinct group dated much, much later, to the 19th century, around the 1800s.
Yeah, the 1800s. Wow, that's much more recent.
And it gets stranger. Genetic analysis showed these 19th century individuals had Eastern Mediterranean ancestry.
Wait, what? Eastern Mediterranean, like Greek.
Or from the Levant.
Somewhere in that broad region, yes.
In the Himalayas. In the 1800s. How is that possible? What were they doing there? That doesn't fit the pilgrimage idea at all. Exactly. It's a complete puzzle. There's no obvious historical record, no known migration, nothing that easily explains a group of people with that genetic background being way up there at that time.
And you mentioned other evidence supporting this.
Yeah, isotopic analysis of their bones, looking at diet, suggested they ate primarily land-based C3 foods, typical of inland diets, not coastal ones. Which just adds another layer of mystery. Why were they there?
So radiocarbon dating blew up the single event theory, and then genetics throws in this completely unexpected group from the Mediterranean region. How did they even do that genetic analysis on such old bones?
It's pretty amazing science. They extract ancient DNA, usually from powdered bone, which is really difficult because the DNA is degraded.
I bet.
Then they use techniques like SNP analysis, looking at tiny variations in the DNA code, and also mitochondrial DNA analysis.
Which traces the maternal line.
That's right. Mitochondrial haplogroups give strong clues about deep ancestry and where people's ancestors came from geographically. And this work clearly showed at least 3 distinct genetic groups.
3. So not just the 800 CE South Asians and the 19th century Mediterraneans.
There was also at least one individual identified with East Asian ancestry.
Okay, this story just keeps getting more complex. Multiple groups, multiple time periods, multiple origins, all ending up at this one small lake.
It proves definitively that Rupkund Lake wasn't the site of one tragedy, but several, spread out over more than 1,000 years.
And the isotopic analysis you mentioned before, the diet stuff, how did that help confirm these are separate groups?
Right, so isotopes like carbon and nitrogen in your bones reflect what you ate. Different plants, different environments leave different chemical signatures.
You are what you eat, chemically speaking.
Pretty much. And the fact that the different genetic groups also show different isotopic signatures strongly supports the idea they came from different places, had different lifestyles, and weren't related groups that just happened to die centuries apart. They were distinct populations experiencing separate tragedies.
Okay, let's try and pull this all together. The picture emerging now is completely different from where we started.
Radically different. We've gone from thinking maybe one group of soldiers or pilgrims caught in one storm.
To what? What's the current best understanding?
The current understanding is multifaceted. There was likely a group, probably South Asian pilgrims, who died around 800 CE. The evidence for a catastrophic hailstorm being the cause for that group is quite strong, aligning remarkably with the Nanda Devi legend.
So the legend might specifically relate to that 800 CE event.
It seems plausible, yes. But then, 1,000 years later, you have this other group, people of Eastern Mediterranean origin, dying there in the 19th century. And we still have basically no idea why they were there or what killed them.
Plus the individual with East Asian ancestry, their story is also unknown.
Exactly. The mystery deepens in many ways. It's not one solved puzzle, but multiple nested puzzles.
It really shows how science can sometimes make things more complex, more fascinating, rather than just giving simple answers.
It does. And Skeleton Lake is just a fantastic example of how different fields have to work together. Archaeology, genetics, isotope analysis, even climatology to try and piece together the past.
And it's also incredible how that local folklore, the Nanda Devi legend, seems to have held onto a kernel of truth for centuries.
It really is. Legends aren't history books, obviously. They get embellished, changed.
Really?
But they can act as a form of cultural memory. They can preserve echoes of real events.
Like the
The hailstorm. Science came along much later and found physical evidence that resonates strongly with that ancient story, even while revealing this much bigger, more complicated picture overall.
So wrapping this up, what are the really key things for us to take away from this deep dive into Skeleton Lake?
I think the main thing is the journey from that initial haunting image and those early, simpler theories.
Wartime casualties, single pilgrimage disaster.
Right. To the scientific revelations of a much more complex history. Multiple groups, distinct genetic origins, including that really unexpected Mediterranean group dying in separate events over 1,000 years apart.
It underscores just how much history can be hidden in unexpected places. A tiny lake holding centuries of tragedy.
Absolutely. And it's a testament to how powerful interdisciplinary science can be in unlocking those hidden stories.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, it makes you wonder, how many other places out there, places that seem maybe ordinary or have simple explanations attached, might actually hold similarly complex, surprising histories? Histories that could totally change how we think about past connections, migrations, human stories.
That's a great point, a provocative thought. The past is definitely not always what it seems, and there are likely countless stories still waiting beneath the surface, ready to challenge our assumptions.
Definitely something for you listening to ponder. If you're intrigued by Skeleton Lake, there's a lot more detail in the published research out there. It's a mystery that continues to unfold, reminding us just how much our ancestors' bones can still tell us if we learn how to listen.